practice of micro-jigging is winning so many fans every day, but if you're new to the term and the style of fishing, let's spend a few minutes showing exactly what a micro-jig is, how it works, why it works, the type of area you might fish it. And let's face it, they're one of the more versatile lures on the market. You can chase flathead in the estuaries on them, bass in the dams, your snapper offshore, out here in the Coral Sea, all sorts of tropical species. With a good mate of mine, Damon Olsen, he's a guide. He's going to give us a bit of a hand to find a few, and together we might go and play with a couple.
Jiggled it and he came and smashed it. We just pulled up on a little pinnacle. I think he might have just got sharked.
Something else coming. I got a fish here.
Bitten off.
Bitten off, sharked. I'm in trouble then as well. I might go extra hard here. Paddle tail, beautiful fish. The really neat things about micro-jigging is the setup of the jig with these assists, and it does a few things. A, it makes this lure snag resistant. The other thing it does is once a fish is hooked, it does keep the weight of the lure away from the mouth, and that tends to mean more fish come back to the boat. They don't escape by throwing the weight of the jig out of their mouth and those hooks free. Micro-jigging, as the name implies, is a smaller style jig fishing, and in my opinion, micro-jigs come in anywhere from about the 10 gram mark up to the 100, 110 gram mark. When you start getting the 150, 200 up to your 400 gram jigs, you're starting to look more at our classic knife style jigging. So you're looking at your small style jigs, and when you look at a jig, what you'll find is they've all come in varied shapes and colours. They come with 2 attachment points. You'll find 1 or 2 assist hooks attached to the standard, what we call top of the jig. They'll flutter more slowly or faster to the bottom depending on that attachment point you use. The idea behind the jig is that it flutters down to the bottom and then you'll hop it up and down once it gets down there. The 2 hooks up the top, your assist hooks, your 1 or 2 hooks, make it more snag resistant, means you get more jigs back. The idea being when a fish comes along and grabs that, it's going to get pinned on that, and we're in for a bit of fun. That's the standard profile of your micro jig.
We're fishing a little pinnacle here, comes up to about 15 metres out of 30 metres. We've got a run out tide just pushing into the face of the pinnacle. So the bait's stacked up on the edge there. The fish are going to be hanging around looking for the bait. Doesn't matter where you're fishing, it's the same sort of theory. You want to find structure, current and bait. You can find those 3 things. You want to use your sounder, have a little bit of a look around and see what you can find, because that's where the fish are going to hang.
How much fun is that?
That was fantastic. GT and a jobby double hookup. That's a beast of a job fish.
And that is the reason that we love to micro jig.
It's just so much fun, isn't it? You don't know what's going to happen.
Everything loves to eat them. Yep. It's easy.
Yep.
Doesn't matter what depth the water is, you can find a jig to fish it.
Yep.
And it doesn't knock you up having to do it all day. No. So much fun. So many different ways to fish a micro jig. You can hop them on the bottom, you can high speed spin them at times for pelagics. There's 2 predominant ways to break down the retrieve, and one is in slightly deeper water. We're in 20 odd metres of water at the moment. The boat's drifting that way and we're fishing the jigs behind the boat, and it's a case of letting the jig go to bottom. And I think one of the most important things when you're micro jigging is to have line management or good contact with your jig the whole way through the retrieve. So as it's going down, I'm letting that line drop through my thumb and forefinger so I can feel the moment the line speed changes, whether it hits the bottom, whether it picks up speed, or whether a fish eats it. Having hit bottom, all I'm going to do then is hop the jig half a metre off the bottom and then hold it for a second. It's amazing how many fish come up, have a look at it, and then they eat it. If nothing happens after a little while, drop it back to bottom. The moment the line slackens, a little hop off the bottom, and oh, there's a bite. The idea is to just keep fishing that jig through what you think is the prominent fish holding ground. Keep contact with the bottom. Every time it hits bottom, hop it up a little bit, hold it, and just fish your jig through that whole productive looking area. If you've got no bites, go up and do it again. If it doesn't work after a while, move on to a new spot. But this is how we fish the slightly deeper water. Very cool fish.
They are fantastic.
It's the reason we're puffing.
Yeah, they fight hard, these things, don't they?
Manage every metre of these ones.
Fantastic.
Let's get them back.
Let's get them back in the water, eh?
The way I like to fish this shallower water is to cast ahead of the drift. Decent distance, and then keep the line tight. And what that'll let the jig do is sink under a tight line, which does slow the descent of the jig. It also lets me stay in contact down to those slightly shallower depths. And very often, the jig will get hit on the way down, so it's important to keep that line tight. It also lets you feel the moment you hit the bottom. Having hit bottom, quick little jig up and quickly wind up that slack line. Let the jig go back to bottom with the line tight. The moment it's on the bottom again, another little jig. As it gets to the bottom, the line slackens, and you keep working that jig back towards you. Work it all the way back into the drift until it's beneath your feet, then wind it up and do it again.
Just got busted off on the shorter rod. Action's on here, so I just tied it onto me longer casting rod. Woo! Managed to pull a real big green jobby away from the sharks. So if you want to get yourself set up for micro jigging, just get into store, make sure you get a reel that's got the right line capacity and a really smooth drag. The guys in store will be able to set you up with a rod that's perfect for the type of micro jigging you're doing, and it really depends where you are. One of the most critical things with micro jigging is make sure you've got a really good braided line, nice thin braid, because it's all about sensitivity and keeping in contact with that jig. You really want to be able to feel the jig, and the more action you can impart to that jig down deep, the more fish you're going to catch.